Welcome to the third season of Heard Afros and Audio interview series. My guest today is Armel Kembe. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good, man. It's great to connect. We've had different touch points to talk about Trouble and the great work that you're doing on that platform. But this is an opportunity for us to really sit down and chop it up about who you are and why you came to this.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
So, right off the gate, man, what inspired you to create Trebble FM and how does your background in software engineering influence the platform's design?
It's a long story, but we're on the podcast, so I thought I'd give you the short version. So I've been working in the audio space for a long time. I've developed before a platform for helping people listen to short form content. And then I worked on developing another product for coaches and educators that wanted to create audio courses. And while I was working on any of those products, one of the problems that I always encountered was the fact that people always had difficulty editing the content. So it was never really a problem for them to record the content, but there was always that roadblock where people needed to edit the content. And for the longest time, I thought I wish like somebody could just make something that was easier, super simple, that can just get the job done without having to worry too much about the effort that goes into it. I remember, I think it was like December 2022. I was so frustrated, and I just took the holiday and said, "Hey, you know what? Let's see if we can come up with something that made sense." I just started working on it during the holidays, and it just took off from there, honestly. The short answer will be it was a lot of frustration about what's available, and as a creator, just feeling like there was a need to be filled.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a need to be filled as this podcasting, the audio industry is still growing and emerging. And so there's such a space for more innovative platforms and ways in which we can create efficiencies for our workflows. Because a lot of podcasters aren't in the technical aspect of it or aren't in the audio professional side. And so anything that makes life easier is a win for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Just to pick up on what you're saying, I always remember one of the stories that I kept seeing is people feeling like it was too much work. They were giving up on podcasting. They felt, oh, I need to figure out a way to hire somebody to do it. And I just felt, I know there's a way to make it easier for people, right? It's not that hard, but I think there are great tools that can be created to make it a more pleasurable experience.
Yeah, for sure. I love problem solvers, man. And this is a solution. You heard the call for support and the need, and you got solution focused with Treble. For all of us podcasters and audio professionals, thank you.
I appreciate you all.
Yeah, for sure. Treble FM simplifies audio and video editing for non professionals using AI. How did you identify this need in the content creation space?
The way I figured that out was I've been in the audio space for a long time. And every time I work on a product, anytime people had to publish any type of content online, one of the intricate pieces of the workflow was editing. And the thing that often came about is that a lot of people that were creating content had this challenge where they never really felt like they were comfortable enough with technology. They were never professional editors, meaning they had the opportunity to work with content before. So they were not really comfortable when it was manipulating content. But they also always had a different hat of it. They were maybe a business person or a small business or a coach, a teacher, somebody that had an expertise in something that was not editing. They wanted to use that specific expertise to share that knowledge, information through media, through podcasting. But the roadblock that came across always was, hey, I want to do this, but it's hard. I don't like this. And what tend to happen is that they give up at some point, just creating content after all. And that was a frustrating thing for me because often I was either the person that was trying to develop a platform to help them share their content or listener. I always felt like there was a roadblock that can be, I guess, removed. Like
Mhm.
I said, and so I really just I looked around in the market for like solution that I could recommend to people. Say, hey, you should just use this. But there weren't something that I felt like, okay, this is something that they could use because one of the things that kept coming back, even the thing that I wanted to recommend, I just felt like it was still too complex, right? It was easier than traditional tool, but still complex enough that somebody that was trying to edit content felt it's just. not pleasurable. It
Mhm.
was just hard at the end of the day. Like it was easier, but it was still time consuming. So that's really what I'll tell you. I had enough of those experiences that at some point I just say, hey, I think this is something I should do.
Yeah, man, had enough of those experiences. And for us, obviously, with Afros and Audio, the goal is sustainability, that we can continue to start the work, but also continue the work and not let anything that becomes too hard or as it becomes an impediment to just stop us altogether. So, again, man, kudos to you for contributing to that effort. So, before you founded Treble, you developed a music sharing platform to gain recognition. How did that experience shape your approach to building Treble?
Yeah, that's a long time ago. I developed this platform for helping influencers share the music that they were coming across. A great experience because it was the first time, before doing that, I was working as an engineer in a medium to large size company. One of the challenges that I felt was that I was building product or doing things with code, but I never had the opportunity to see how the work that I was actually doing was contributing in people's lives and couldn't really feel it. I could just do the code and then just what happened, whatever. Hey, it was good, it was bad. Working with the music sharing platform was really the first time where I had the opportunity to be in touch with people. So I'll get the chance to create something. And then on the other side, I will see how people be a lot happier with what they were doing or were able to produce more. It was transformational for me because it's like a feedback loop where you do something, you see how people like. If they like it, then it's great. If they don't like it, they'll tell you what you don't like, and then you just keep improving. But the true interesting thing for me personally was the fact that I was able to full code together and somehow help somebody create something that they were not able to have before. Naturally, especially when you write code, I feel like the magic with writing code is the fact that you can help people automate or simplify your life, right? So let's say somebody, I'm just going to make up something up here, like somebody had spent a lot of time going through the emails really all the time, and then you could create something that could help them not having to spend hours going through the emails. And now suddenly you write this piece of code. It's like a magician. You put this thing together and then you give it to people, and then poof, it just transforms something in their life. Working on the music share platform give me the opportunity to do that, but also it was good because I was also at that point really feeding out a need for people. A lot of people had blogs at the time. It was also like YouTube, different ways, SoundCloud at the time, different ways to share music. So a lot of bloggers at the time, they were going to different sources of putting content, but it was always very complicated to put in the article or doing playlists or how you embed on your website. I remember one of the first things that I created was a Chrome extension that you could add to your browser. And as you come on a page or you go on a website, you see something, you can just click a button and it was integrated with a bunch of other websites. I think they had this concept of a radio station. So when you pick something, automatically publish it on their radio station. Then people that used to go on your website or their blog will be able to consume that music. Honestly, it was really good. My personal best memory of that was really just like when I had a call with a blogger and them telling me how this was so cool and they love the product. I always imagined having something like that. One of the best experiences. So I learned a lot of that, just being able to create something that impact people, being able to listen to what people need. People should also take what some people consider negative feedback, saying, "Hey, I didn't like this." When I used to work in enterprise, when issues happen, you don't really feel it. But when you're in touch with a customer and something happened or they couldn't get something done and they feel frustrated, you feel it. So you somehow pay more attention. You care more
Mhm.
because you know how much impact like having a negative experience. So I got to learn a lot from just being in touch with people and really building product for people.
Yeah, man, and that's really the golden aspect of the work is that feedback loop, as you mentioned, that feedback loop, because it's one thing, and just to your point earlier about, softwares or even hardware that has a lot of features. And sometimes there's a learning curve to those features. And it becomes a part of the creator, the developer saying, I know what I think you need, versus listening to the customer, asking the customer, because we will tell you what we need. We'll tell you what we don't need, what's not that important to us. And that kind of supports both of us. It supports you
Yeah.
from wasting a lot of time developing something that is going to be barely used. And it gets us right to the heart of using something that we actually
Yeah.
need.
Yeah, it's a balance, like you mentioned. I think, unfortunately, people that often build product have difficulty listening, and it's understandable because when they come in, they have in mind a strong idea of how things should be, right? So they come in, they start building this thing, and as you mentioned, often for it to be sustainable, you have to understand you're doing it for people. Like you're not building a product for yourself. I mean, something you can, but I think ideally you're building a product for others. And you have to keep that in mind. But I think naturally people that are builders, they come in with preconception of what things should be instead of just listening to the people and hearing what things should be. I think there's also sometimes a balance, and you certainly want to be able to pay attention and listen. Sometimes it's a communication exercise because as you talk to people and they tell you what they need, you might be able to bridge a gap that maybe they haven't seen.
Hmm.
But still, that's why I think at the end of the day, you have to listen because even if you use your intuition, the customer is the one using it. The customer
Hmm.
is the one that has the problem. So yes, you might have an intuition on what the problem is, but at the end of the day, the customer will tell you if it is or if it isn't.
Yeah, and trusting that the customer's smart too, that they understand those pain points very well because they're in it. And even if they can't articulate exactly what it is, that is that advocacy for there's a problem here and I need some support or solve for this. And so
Yeah,
trusting that the consumer and the customer is smart enough to share that information. That's saying that you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. Sometimes you are, but it's helpful that you aren't. That's
absolutely.
really great. Yeah. Speaking more on the AI aspect of it, because it is a part of our world now, it's not going away, it's ever evolving. And we want to go with it and not get left behind in any way. So, how does, and you mentioned this a little bit, but if there is anything else that stands out for you that you want to speak on, how does Treble FM leverage AI to simplify editing for creators? And what sets it apart from other editing platforms in that way?
I'll tell you, I think the key part that really different about Trevor is the philosophy around the product. The product first was really created to help people save time into the editing process while maintaining a certain amount of quality. Right. So that's like I'll say the first motivational driver for editing that does. It's like, how can we help people save time while maintaining quality? And the third piece I should probably add is added affordable cost, because sometimes you can do those two things, but usually cost you money. So how do we do that? And AI really comes into the picture as a fuel for kind of helping solve that problem. So we really focus on the everyday person, the creator. Like I always say, we focus on the person that usually creating content is not their job. They have usually another thing that they consider as their job, and then they happen to have to create content. So that's the persona that we try and help at the end of the day. A lot of the time they don't have the money to hire somebody to do the work for them. They usually don't enjoy doing the work themselves, but they often have to share the content so it reflect on them on their image. So they want it to be as good as possible, but they also don't want to spend because often they don't have the time. So that's really the context in which Treble operates and is trying to serve. Now we leverage AI to help with that. The way we leverage AI and the philosophy I was saying is we focus on problems, use cases, right? So for example, we look at podcasts and everything. What are the challenges that they have? Where do they spend the most time? How can we help? And then when we identify those problems, we look, okay, what is possible to do with AI here? How can we make that experience simpler, easier, while maintaining quality? And so there's this balance where we have on two sides. One side, we look at the problem, we identify problems, and then we turn around, we look at AI as a solution to solve on those problems. And as AI is a thing that's very popular now, but there are a lot of avenue when you come to AI. It's a very generic term. We have a large language model, OpenAI,
Mhm.
ChatGPT, but there are other things, not necessarily in the common public spaces around natural language understanding or speech editing. So our all philosophy and job is not just to look at the popular things, but also the obscure things and figure, okay, how can we leverage these to solve those problems that we see for people. And while we do that, sometimes what we have to do is that we have to develop our own AI solution or build on top of solution to create something that makes sense. So we act a little bit more like a curator that looks around and say, okay, here's some problems, and then we go around in the field of AI trying to find what can we put together to solve those problems. And sometimes it happens, doesn't happen often, but it happens that you actually have to develop something unique to solve that problem. So that's really how we approach it. On the product, as you could probably imagine, we have things like remove that out, but there are other challenges, other problems that we're looking into to solve as well with AI.
Okay, all right. And so, what feedback from users has been most impactful in shaping Treble's features and innovations?
I'll make it simple. People don't want
Hmm.
to spend the time. They want it to be simple. They want things that work. They don't want to spend the time, and they want as much quality as they can.
Hmm.
Right. And one thing that I realized, honestly, talking to people that create content, is that a lot of the people that I mentioned are retargeting. Editing is not a task that they enjoy doing. What I spend a lot of time doing is really figuring out, again, how can we make it simpler for them, because therefore they're a little more happier. But what we're really hoping to do is really take that burden from people and not have them edit at all. It's certainly an ambitious goal, and it's not something for everybody. But I think we certainly recognize there's a lot of people that just don't want to do that work. Right now, we're making it easier, but we are hoping to make it, completely somehow automated and transparent for them to not have to edit because they don't want to head. I'll tell you the number one thing that we hear is that people spend too much time, they're unhappy when they do it, and they just don't want to do it. So
Hmm.
they come to Treble because they're hoping to have a better product, take less time, and just work. Right. So the thing that we also see, just to come back to your question, is that sometimes they use other tools, but then things half work. One thing I realized talking to people want things that works. They don't want to work 50% of the time because if the 50% of the time working makes it feel unreliable, and then the experience is just not that because you're using something and then you're like, okay, maybe it's gonna work, maybe it's not gonna work. So you don't know, am I gonna spend 30 minutes editing this thing, or am I gonna it's gonna be an hour? So try to have a very consistent, reliable experience.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And essentially, it doesn't time save. It doesn't work because we're speaking to the person who doesn't have the technical capabilities or knowledge until they learn it. And a lot of us have had to learn how
Yeah.
to become better at that. But also those audio professionals who do love the work, but it is still a time consuming process. So this supports in turnaround time for clients, supports in their workflow and their bottom line.
Absolutely. Now, I want to just touch on something you just said. I spend a lot of time talking about the person that doesn't want to edit. But we do also serve, people that actually enjoy editing, but there are things in their workflow that they do not enjoy doing.
Mhm.
And so we also try to help some of those people as much as we can, although our focus, like I said, on the people that just they're not, but we do also serve the people that are professional. Part of their workflow might be a little bit too time consuming or broken, or they enjoy the whole overall process, but the part of
Mhm.
it that they just don't. And then so we're helping there too.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, just jumping really quickly back to AI, continues to evolve. What future possibilities do you see for its role in content creation and editing?
There's always a good side and a bad side to things. So I'm just going to talk about the good side. But the beauty that I see with AI, the thing is really going to help democratize content creation to some extent, help people be able to create more, and certainly help them focus on the matter of the content, right? Unfortunately, today I feel like we do spend more time than we should on how things look and how things feel instead of the actual content. So I think the first step probably will help people focus on their message, but I think in the future it'll probably help them even enhance their message, right? So they have something to say, but how can they say it better? How can they say what they want to say or share what they want to share in a way that can be more amplified or impactful, right? I also believe we're going to see maybe new ways to create content. I wish I had a crystal ball and tell you how, but I do feel like with all the investment in video and generative AI, there's certainly going to be ingenious ways to share a message. Now, the other thing that I'm particularly excited about is that I think AI is going to be able to help. more people that are today are not necessarily able to express themselves or share their message. I think AI is going to really help bring those people to the table as well. One of the beauty about podcasting is that it has helped surface voices that couldn't be heard before, right? I think AI is going to come the same way podcasting came and really elevate voices. So
Mhm.
somebody as an individual might have something in their mind that they want to share, but they can't really figure out a way to share it. I think AI will also help at that level, being able to help display or present the message in its most impactful form. A good example of that is you can write an article, but then you can go to ChatGPT, maybe strengthen your message or make it more
For
understanding for
sure.
more. So I
Mhm.
think this is where, at the end of the day, AI is going to help.
Yeah, man. It's like what a time to be alive. It's
Yeah.
technology is and podcasting and AI evolving in the same time, in the same space. And to your point, there's these expansions and extensions of the work. You might be a good writer, but you might not be good at storyboarding or pitching. And you're able to create and put these elements together with the support of technology. And that's really what it is. It's technology. And for some people, AI is still, like cursing at them. But at the same time, again, it's here. People are using it. And the
Mhm.
people who are using it will be moving much faster than the people who
Absolutely.
aren't. And it is what it is. We're talking a lot about podcasters and this world, but Treble FM is designed for solo creators, entrepreneurs, and small business owners as well. So, how do you ensure that the platform meets their specific needs?
Yeah, the way I travel really make sure that the people that we're serving are served is really, like I said earlier, just first hearing them, talking to them, hearing what they're doing today, what is challenging for them. But one question that I like to ask people, which I think is always very important for me, is to understand where they're going, right? So sometimes you talk to a podcast and they tell you, hey, I'm a podcast and this is what I'm doing. But I would like to tell them why they're doing it, where are they trying to go? And often, even in trouble, what I spend a little bit of time doing is always figure out that long-term vision. What are people trying to achieve through podcasting? What are people trying to achieve through creating content? And so I try to tie up what we're doing, not just about features, like I said, but really goals and help and reverse engineer from there. Now I know their goals. I know what they're doing. I also know their goals, but I'll try to just with the product, I don't just try to hit the features, but really help towards their goal, right? Maybe through a feature, but really always focusing on the goal. So, like again, like I said, listen to people, asking questions, understanding their motivation, their goal, their challenges, and just working towards it. I spend a lot of my time in calls.
I'm so grateful to be having this conversation with you because one of the points and purpose of Afros and Audio is to showcase the fact that there is innovation within our demographic, within our
Mhm.
community. There are platforms and opportunities and softwares and hardwares that we have this ability to create. And of course, it's not for any one demographic, it's for all. It's for all creators, all podcasters, anyone who wants to use it, but it's so important that this representation is there for the possibility that someone else has an idea and they're just waiting for that permission and say, yeah, I can do that too. I just wanted to throw that out there because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about how this is full circle moment in a way that says that we have these abilities to innovate and invent these things that support us as creators. And there's so much opportunity in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't like to throw it too much in when I talk about this, but I feel like being maybe a person of color, you do understand sometimes the need to have something that empower people. So to say. I think I said I probably mentioned this word multiple times on this conversation, but one thing that I do is trying to empower people, trying to give them the tools to make their life easier. But I think as a person of color, it's something that we sadly are acquainted to, not necessarily having the right tool, the right support sometimes to get to where you need to get. I've had a chance to talk to a lot of people, and it breaks my heart sometimes to be in a conversation with somebody and be like, oh, I've tried this and I couldn't get this. It's so frustrating. Sometimes they don't necessarily have the support that they need. That's why I think what you do with Afro and Audio, I think is beautiful because with Trebble, you build tools, but you don't necessarily build people. You don't necessarily we try, but I think when you do Afro, I think is commendable because other than the tools, the technology, people and support is also important, right? To be able to look across and see somebody just like you that is trying to do something just like you, or that is maybe further ahead, and you can have a conversation with. You mentioned that, but I thought it was interesting. I just want to bring Afro because when I came across it the first time, I just thought it was like this is something that needed to exist. So I'm happy that you put it together because it is some of those things that as maybe as a creator, some people will wish existed, but nobody will roll their sleeve to make it
Hmm.
exist. So I think it's the people that do roll their sleeve to do it, they make a lot of people's life easier. So shout out to
For
you.
sure. Thank you. And speaking of, right, some of those challenges, as a CEO of Trouble, what have been your biggest challenges and successes in leading a tech startup in the content creation space?
I think the challenges always change, but right now, I think the biggest challenge is finding great talent in AI specifically. It's certainly a conversation that's not going to die down, but it can be challenging to find great talent in the space of AI because either it's a lot more expensive than people think to hire talent, and even sometimes, especially in the space of audio and speech and video, like talent's even more limited. So I think personally, just as a CEO, the biggest challenge is finding talent. So it's easy to have a vision to build something or have an idea for a product, but sometimes you're just limited by the talent or the resource that you can put towards that goal. That's just the nature of the game, just used to that. Other than that, I would say that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah. No, it's all good, man. But I can also imagine talent and that being a part of it, but also like keeping up. It's a lot going on. And there is something to say to create something around that and make it the best it can be. But then something else happens, something
So
else comes
yeah,
up.
that's
But
true. I do believe I'm biased when I say that Trouble is a great product, but I think spreading the word about the product and how people think is still something that is challenging, but I think it's getting better. I wouldn't
yeah,
say that they're not one problem, but it's certainly one of those challenges.
your advice is that success takes time, persistence, and continuous effort. So, how has this philosophy guided you in building Trouble?
Oh, yeah, it's good to give advice, but how does the advice relate to me? I think for me, I preach my own advice. Yeah, I feel good things take time, right? Sometimes we're frustrated about things are not going fast enough, or we're not where we expect to be at this point in time. But I always remind myself that if you're building something, if you're doing something that is going to be impactful, that's going to be meaningful, it's going to take effort and it's going to take time, which kind of makes sense if you think about it. If something seems too easy to do, might be just a trick that you're doing, but it's not going to be sustainable. So I try to remind it takes time. It takes time to build great things. It takes time to have an impact, but perseverance and really keep is where you over time makes a difference, right? I think we often hear stories from people like, "Oh, this person did this. Oh my God, this is so cool." And then everybody that has success looks like a one time like a overnight success, but it really isn't. I don't know a lot of overnight success that actually a
Either.
real success. So it takes time. I think it's applicable to any you're doing in life, right? So we're not just talking about companies, even in podcasting, right? As you probably, I'm sure you talk to a lot of podcasters that they do it for 3 months. And they say, "Oh, how come I'm not getting listeners? Oh, hey, I want to make money from this." The truth is that's not how things work. If you're here for the long haul, it's going to take time. As long as you keep at it and you are motivated to keep going, you're going to build something that truly has value, is sustainable. Right. So
Hmm.
that's what I apply in my, not just for travel, but just all across my life. I always give that advice to people because talking to people is something certain that come across where people, they are often frustrated for not being where they think they should be. But it takes time. Just got to be sometimes a little bit patient.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a process. The more intentional you are about that process, the more accelerated it can be, but it's still the journey has to happen. There aren't any steps that can be skipped in that
Yeah.
journey. What lessons from your journey as an entrepreneur would you pass on to aspiring tech innovators?
Yes, and I'm trying to like think of something. I'll say first, you have to. We talked about it earlier. I think it's an important thing for sure. You have to listen again, especially when people come in tech space or in the technology people. Like you mentioned earlier, they often think they know more than they People, like you said, the customer might not be smart enough to tell you what they need. Be humble. Come in. You have the talent of maybe creating, using technology to create things, but that's probably the limit of what you actually truly can do. The rest of the job is listening, paying attention, and really asking the right question to be able to uncover like the true problem that people have. What's their motivation? As a psychologist, because you go into conversation with people and you really sometimes take the time to dig to really understand what they need, how can you help them. That's one thing. The other thing is love what you do. If you're going to do it for the money, there's other ways to make money. Building technology startups, especially in this day and age, is not the quickest way to make money. If you're into make money, you, there are other ways to make money. You want to try your best to build a team or ecosystem around you that can help you, that can guide you at the minimum, give you advice. I think it's very important, especially when you come into you're building something new, to have people to support you. We don't always have support, maybe at least in the way that you want it to be, but I think it's important to try your best to find support wherever you can find it in order to support you in your journey. Trying to find the support that can guide you. There are people out there for sure that, depending on your background or the people that you have access to, it might be tough to find them, but there are people. So, and I'll say it's important to try your best to go and get that support, because it can open a lot of doors for you. I mean, I just can give you different perspective.
Hmm.
Having people in your corner, I think, because building a company is a very challenging process. So having people around you that can support you, not necessarily do it for money. It's good to business, you do it for money to some extent, but it can be the number one thing that drives you. You have to have a deeper motivation that drives you, because when the money is not going to be there for a while, if that was the only thing you're looking for, then you're going to just give up. And I would say the last thing, really, keep going. Don't get discouraged. It's not easy. The moment when you're going to be discouraged, but don't let it discourage you. Keep going. Don't give up. Keep going. That's my I know I'll give a long list of things, but those are the few things I certainly share with people that are just starting in the tech space.
Yeah, no, it's real, man. And I'm in the event space, but it all resonated. It's
Yeah.
very important. All of those aspects of moving our visions forward. Nobody said it was going to be easy. And once you're off the sidelines and you're in the game, that's when the work begins. And it is important. There's a lot of things out here, a lot of obstacles, a lot of people, a lot of things that can knock us off that square and say, you know what, let me just go to something that I know is safe. I know where my next meal is coming from. It's easy. I've been there, done that. But there's a whole other thing to be committed to the vision and what you know is possible. And you learn as you go. That's with anything. Even if you create and your first iteration is that first vision, it gets to expand and scale up. And the only way for that to occur is that you're still doing the work.
One thing I was going to also say, I think sometimes, especially could be you're running your company, like you said, you're in the event space, you're doing different things. It might not work the way you want it, but I think the beauty of doing this type of work is that you grow as an individual, and you never want to underestimate, what that group can bring in your life, right? Because you
Hmm.
might say, "Hey, I want to start a company." And maybe you do for a year or two, it doesn't work out the way you thought. And you're like, oh my God, I just wasted a year or 2 years of my life. You certainly grow as an individual, right?
Hmm.
It helps you grow. And often it actually lead to bigger, better things. So if you let's say you do that thing for a year or two, it doesn't work. If you do something else, you realize probably five, you take an individual, they maybe did something for a year or two, it didn't work out. But you look at the span of their life, maybe the next 5, 10 years after, the trajectory that they'll take is probably better than if they didn't do that thing, right? Because going through that experience help them develop skills, grow as an individual that really transport them in other aspect of their life often, right? So one of the beauty, I think, of the gift of kind of going through those experiences you were mentioned, whether it be through a startup or you're doing you're in an event, you're building communities, that all those things help you grow, right?
For
So
sure.
you never really losing. I think it's important for people to not forget that. On the
Yeah.
long term, you always win, right?
That's it,
Going through
man.
the things that you're not comfortable, it helps you develop something better, bigger than what you probably wouldn't have discovered if you didn't go that path. So you're always
Hmm.
winning. You're always
Yeah,
winning.
for sure, man. I appreciate that perspective so much. I'm absolutely in alignment with it. You've said that the most rewarding part of your work is seeing how trouble positively impacts people's lives. What motivates you to keep innovating and pushing the platform forward?
Yeah. Making people happy. Sometimes a person will book a call with me just to tell me, oh my God, like you don't know how this software helps. Like I was doing this, I was doing that, and then now I just do this, and I'm so happy. And then I'm like, oh my God, like I'm happy to be on the call and hear those positive things. I think for me personally, what keeps you going, you really just see the impact. Right. Like I said before, I've worked in different companies, more in the enterprise side, where you don't necessarily get to feel the impact of what you do. But I think, and that may be part of the motivational reason why I do this is because working with, like I said, the sole business, the entrepreneur, the coach, the educator, they're often people that, like I said, don't have the means to hire somebody to do it. And they do it because they have no option. And so there's nothing more gratifying for me to be able to help those people make something better with their limited resource and be able to make the process of creating a lot easier, a lot more enjoyable, right? Because you see it, you feel it when you have conversation with those people. So to me, that's really one of the motivators, just being able to create something, being able to see, talk to somebody, and you hear it authentically. That somebody you don't know say, "Hey, I love what you do. This is really helpful for me." It just helps you keep going because then you
Yeah,
think, "How more can I do?"
no, it's everything, man. So I just have two more questions for you. As Trouble grows, what are your goals for the platform and how do you see it evolving to meet the changing needs of creators?
I think with Treble, our goal is to continue to help people. We're helping people to save time, but I think we can do better. I think we can do better by being more reliable. I think we can do better by leveraging more technology to, help people save more time. So I think that's what we're going to continue to do. There's new advancement in AI and technology that we can leverage to help people. I think we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to help people save time, get better quality. But I think in a longer term, what I also want us to help people do is enhance their message. Like, how can we, yes, they come here to edit, but how can we help them with their overall quality? Like, how can we really help them with their storytelling, right? Like, help them amplify their message. I think on the long term, that's what we're going to do. Help them save time, right? Well, ideally, the biggest mission will be that people see editing like something that they don't have to think too much about. It's just like a checkbox somewhere that they just, hey, it's done. I want Treble to make it a less cumbersome process. So I think we're going
Mhm.
to continue to work towards that mission. And yeah, that's and leverage AI and technology, right? I think what we're in the business doing is help people save time.
Yeah, and I would love to see it as a part of the beginning of a workflow. How back in the day where there was this one platform that everybody could use their phone, did
Yeah,
their little
just
podcast and then sent it out. And that was the way people got started. And then of course everything else came out. But there's such opportunity for aspiring and new podcasters to begin with Treble. Just have that
yeah.
a part of their workflow in the very beginning.
Absolutely. I think
Yeah.
you're making a good point. Really listening to people, seeing where the problem is. There's certainly a distant future, but hopefully very soon, the ability to help people with more things
Hmm.
than editing. But just looking, I think the challenge is always figuring out the balance of you don't want to go too far. You just want to get it in increments in a way to make sure that you're hitting the right mark. I think that's
Hmm.
maintaining that balance and making sure things are tight before you move to something else.
Record your podcast, upload to Treble. That's your life.
Yeah, there you go. And then you
Right.
click a button, and then it's your podcast ready to go. You can publish it.
Last question. How can creators, how can myself and the broader podcasting community support Treble FM and its vision for the future of content editing?
Well, I think the first thing, try the product. www.trebble.fm. Go ahead, give it a try. Upload a sample episode. Just see how it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, hit me up, send me a message. Say, hey, I don't like it. So yeah, first thing, try the product, give it a try. Feedback is always helpful. What are we doing good? But more importantly, what are we not doing good? How can we do better? I think the feedback is important. And the last thing is share the word. If you like it and you think this is something that you'll use and that you're using, just share it with somebody else. help somebody by just sharing. So I think those are the three things: try it,
Mhm.
give feedback, and then share it.
All right, got it, man. So you mentioned Trouble .fm as the way to find Trouble online. Is there any social media?
Yes, if you search Trouble FM, I'm sure you'll find not just the website, but also any other social media.
Okay. And what about any direct connection with you?
Yes, I'm easily reachable over email. I do get a lot of emails, but I think it's always the easiest way to communicate with me. So if you want to talk to me, if you have any question or whatever, just send me an email. Armel at Trebble.fm.
All right. Before I let you go, if there's anything else that you want to say to the folks listening, feel free.
Oh, nothing specifically at first. I want to thank you for having me around. I was looking forward to having this conversation. For the people listening, if you don't have a podcast yet, it's never too late to start a podcast, especially if you have a message or something you want to say. You feel like you want people to hear your voice or hear what you have to say. You want to be part of a conversation. Start a podcast. It's never too late. And like I said, my easiest advice is don't give up. Keep going. Good things takes time. So just keep at it. Don't give up.
Thank you, man. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.